Okay, so Keith, we're on, looks like it.
All right.
All right. All right, so I'm calling this September 18th, 2023, regular meeting of the Mancos RE6 School Board to order. The time is 6:01. Roll call, please.
Pam Coppinger,
Here.
Victor Figueroa,
Yeah.
Katie Cahill Volpe. Here. Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Here.
Tim Hunter.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum. Would you please, everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We only have one person in the audience. You just turn off your cell phone. All right. And we don't have anybody signed in for comment, right? Okay, just a reminder that this is a meeting of the Board of Education in public rather than a meeting with the public. Right, and nobody is signed in, so let's go to the agenda. Oops. Do you have a written agenda over there? Okay. That's easier than going back and forth. Thank you, Heather. I should have asked earlier. All right. Approval of agenda.
We can, go ahead.
Approve the agenda as written.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Okay, Heather, call the question, please.
Katie Cahill Volpe. Aye. Pam Coppinger,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa.
Aye.
Tim Hunter.
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. Approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the August 21st,
I'll second that.
2023 meeting.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from August 21st, 2023 regular meeting. Any discussion? All right, Heather, call the question, please.
Katie Cahill Volpe.
Aye.
Pam Coppinger,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa.
Aye.
Tim Hunter.
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. And we had nobody signed up to speak, so district accountability report.
Yes, so for the district accountability report, we started our marketing for that. Our first meeting is on October 3rd. And we have an agenda for that, along with the timeline that's been reviewed by the PBL director, because the DAC for this upcoming year will be reviewing the strategic plan objective reports prior to the board so that they can meet their duty of providing recommendations for the board. And then there's also time in their agenda for other statutory requirements for them to review, like such as evaluation system, budget, and so on. And then at the first meeting, they'll also be looking at the new secondary attendance policy, because I know that's a pretty substantial change at the secondary level to really value student attendance and to really set parameters, effort, and time into making sure that attendance is adhered to at that secondary level in particular. So I applaud the secondary administration for raising that up as an issue, and then for taking the time to share that information with DAC. So it's all coming together. Our administrative assistants at the 3 levels are collecting volunteers for that committee. They've been charged with providing 2 or 3 volunteers of parents from that committee. And then I'm working with district school leadership to also have staff on the committee as well, and also community members. So we meet the statutory requirement. Victoria Peterson Lewis has been very helpful in the development of the structure for this upcoming year for the District Accountability Committee. She's done a lot of communication, her and I have met, and we feel like we're ready to take this to the next level. The last 2 years, we've really focused on education of what the school district does. Now, we're ready for the DAC to provide recommendations to the board.
Okay, so our previous members, are they staying?
It looks like it. There's been interest in communication, and then we'll know on October 3rd when they show up, and also when we have officers elected at that time.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
I highly encourage all parents to come to this. It's an excellent opportunity to get involved and understand what's going on at the school district. It's a great way to learn about, what the priorities are, what the budget looks like. It's a way for their voices to be heard. It's a way for them to raise questions or concerns. It's a fabulous committee. And so I highly encourage parents to just join us. All parents are welcome, and it'll be October 3rd in this room, which is at the historic high school, room 223. And it starts at 5:30 and it runs to 6:45. And this committee will be meeting monthly from October through May. So that's where we're at with the district accountability report.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Emily? Jen? Victor? Katie? All right, so we'll go on with board reports. The LRC, I sent you all an email with a copy of the draft booklet that we worked through on the last LRC meeting, which was August 25th. And I just wanted to point out a few of them. I told you, don't worry about reading through this draft booklet for tonight, because it's gonna take some time. There are 37? No, yeah, 37 resolutions that were submitted, so there are a lot. But anyway, I wanted to just point out a few, and I also sent you a copy of my notes, so you'll know kind of what the discussion was. First of all, when we're recommending these, we vote whether to send them forward without a rating, or we can send them forward with a favorable rating, or we can send them forth with a favorable and send them to the consent part of the agenda. The consent items, so there's a bulk. They can still, the delegate assembly can still pull one of those out if they want to have discussion about them, but it's just like our agenda where we have our consent items. So there's 3 different categories. The first one I wanted to talk about was we had submitted 2, and the first one was resolution number 5. And that was when we were asking a minimum wage beginning for all teachers in the state of Colorado, which was $45K. There was discussion on it, and it was forwarded without a recommendation. It was controversial because it does not honor teachers who have worked longer. It just starts out with new teachers. It bumps everybody up, but if you're already over 45,000, it does very little for you. And Tiffany from, I forget where she's from. Anyway, she was really worried about local control of their board. She doesn't want any more mandates saying you have to do this. So to her, it was a local control issue, which was kind of an interesting way to look at it. So anyway, so that's just up for discussion. That's all that will be on the delegate assembly that Victor attends for us. But as far as when Victor goes to this delegate assembly, remember he represents the board, not Victor. So you need to get all comments to him before. And what is the date of the delegate assembly?
It is October 6th and 7th, so I need it before that time.
Okay. Okay, the other one we submitted was this basically a mirror of the initiative 63. Do you guys remember? 63 was taking excess funds out of that they collected through overtaxing, basically. Anyway, And it was sent forth, let me see. It was sent forth with a favorable,
With
yeah,
consent.
recommendation. They really liked that one. Sorry, I'm just bringing it up. I'm behind over here. It was proposed on the, it was a proposal for the Colorado 2022 ballot, but it didn't make it onto the ballot. It was basically Tabor spending the excesses for K-12 teacher salaries. Initiative 623 failed. They didn't get the signatures they needed. The Colorado General Assembly's picking it up. And you guys will know more this year on how that plays out with the legislature, whether they'll put it on a ballot or not. But anyway, it went forward with a favorable. Oh, and it was added to the consent item.
But it was added, they just asked for one adjustment, and I talked to,
Yeah, and you made that with.
Mr.
right?
Cook about that. And they just asked that, we had teachers in there, and they really wanted to take teachers out and make it staff. So
Staff,
if that's
right.
all the staff versus just teachers.
Right.
Yeah, I think that seems right, especially when I think about like Mr. Whitner's comment on para pay and that being a real hindrance to where we're right now. Like, I do think it needs to be all staff. So I think that was very good.
And that is not in your draft book, that language. It'll
Okay.
come out in the
I see.
final one.
Okay,
Okay. All right, the other one I wanted to talk about was number 9. Polis last year, this was the open meetings resolution that Kathy sent forth, the legislature picked it up. They actually approved it, and all it had to be done is signed by the governor, and he vetoed it. He didn't like the wording of it, so this is gonna come out again. I've already heard the skinny that there's already representatives that are going to pursue this, change the language a little bit. So it's gonna be coming back. So it was voted by the LRC favorable and went to consent. Okay, then we go to 15. So I'm just giving you a little bit of background on some of them that I felt were pertinent that you needed to know that wasn't on the sheet. That one, this was to fully fund school finance. And to bring and this one, Chrissy, you would like, because they wanted to force the legislature to adopt the School Finance Act 21 days prior to the end of the legislation session.
yeah,
So that one went back to favorable with consent. They really liked, Casby really liked that one.
I do too. Because I
Yeah.
know that really is it's very difficult for a small rural school with just one person who is like doing all of the work.
Yep.
Or, well, I shouldn't say just, but it's a small coterie of people.
Right,
Sorry.
yeah, so that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Okay.
good news.
Yeah, so that one, I knew you'd like that much.
Definitely.
But even the bigger schools like that, you know, even though they have a department, they still have to get all their ducks in a row, and when it's
Still the
last
same
session.
session, just on a different
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah, 21 days would give you a lot.
Yeah, it'd be
A long
helpful.
time. So cross your fingers.
Yes.
Okay, the other one was 19, whoops. Some of these have a lot of information in them. 19, and I wanted to ask Todd about that, because it's basically a sustainability of the Colorado intergenerational public school trust, land trust. Do Mancos even deal in any land trust for the school? Do we have any left? We used to have some, but I don't know that we do anymore.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, so that one really doesn't,
The school land trust? lands?
school land trust, that's when they have property.
Right, we have several. in the
Do we have
district.
several?
They're not generating any revenue.
What are they, Tim?
I'd have to look it
Oh,
up.
like dedicated land?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, it was set up originally.
the
they
19th
first-
section.
Yeah, when, you know, one piece per section or whatever.
Right.
I can't remember all the details of what they set up originally, but I know of. Well, maybe that one that I know for sure is outside the district, 'cause it's on Cherry Creek.
Um,
I have to look. I was pretty much convinced that we had 2 or 3 within our, we have 1 within our district and 2 or 3 in the area.
Are those the properties where the schools used to be? 'Cause they-
No, they're a piece of property dedicated. They can be, the state
So many
says, they can log it, they can mine it, I know revenues will all go back to the schools.
So it's state-owned property.
It's state private, it's dedicated school land
I
properties.
understand.
Okay, okay. Anyway, something to look into, I guess, then. Okay, and it went forward, it was just forwarded for more discussion, so. And then I'm gonna jump down to 23. And that was to restore full pupil funding. This gets almost every year. But what they wanted to do, which was different, is they want to pay down the budget stabilization factor this year so that they wipe it out. But they also want to pass legislation that a budget stabilization idea cannot come back into law. Because what's gonna happen is if they take it away this year, and then 2 years down the road, the state finds themselves in trouble, they'll just reenact the BS factor, right? So what this one wants to do is they want to go in and make legislation that can't happen. So, just for your information. So, and it went favorable and went to consent. And then the last one I wanted to talk about was 34. Was this one, they had some discussion with a friend of mine from Fruiter. Because I asked him on 34, they wanted the Colorado Association of School Board supports making a new teacher mentoring a grant program, a permanent program to support new teachers. So right now it's a grant program. They want to fully fund it. And the problem that I had with it is I asked this guy, I said, okay, where's the money going to come from? Well, it comes out of the big pool of money. So anytime somebody says that they want to start a program and they want the state to fund it, that again dilutes down our pool of money that we have. So that's what you have to ask yourself is this program worth spending money on that will give less to school districts because it gets watered down? You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay, so when you're looking at these, and that was the last thing I had, just make sure that when they all sound good. I mean, who doesn't want to give our kids clean water, right? Remember the lead in the water thing with the water filters? We all want to do the best for our kids, but we have to ask ourselves, who's going to fund it? Where is it going to come from? Most of it comes out of the general pool of money. And so the more programs you get, the more washed out everything gets. So just be careful when you're looking at that. So, and please get all your recommendations to Victor as soon as you can. So,
Yeah, and I'll send out a note reminding you guys as we get closer. Again, I know it's hard to look through all of this and
that's why
really kind
we
of
do
give
it on
some,
our
but as I get there, I start talking to folks too about what it is that they're proposing. There's a lot of questions and answers that go on in assembly, so I feel like I'll have a good idea, but I'd really like to get your input.
Yeah.
So the literature that we'll have to refer to will be just this draft.
that's all we're doing. Well,
Okay.
those are the resolutions that are going to CASB.
Great, okay.
So, and there will be a finalized booklet that
Right.
you will get, and also I didn't send you the standing CASB resolutions. They're the ones that are the same every year.
Right.
Fully fund PK-12 education, all of those, they haven't changed in years. So, but they haven't moved either.
They haven't got anything accomplished on them, but they're
Right.
setting resolutions.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last thing I wanted to say about LRC is, guys, I'm going off the board and I would really, really hope that somebody would pick this position up. It's really important that you guys know what's happening in Denver and what they're doing. CASB in the past, the boards has kind of pushed CASB to the side, but right now with us finally getting, we're on the CASB delegate assembly, you can vote through Zoom, so the rural voice should be getting louder. Because these school districts don't have to spend a lot of money sending people to Denver, wherever they're gonna have their meetings, so that's huge. But this work is important, it's real fascinating. I'm not sure that a new board member could handle it because it's a lot to learn. So I would recommend that it be somebody that's already on the board that knows a little bit about it. So, just for your thing, it's worth it to be able to get on the board or on this LRC committee, somebody or whoever's interested, or board president, whatever, needs to contact Matt because it is an appointment. It's actually an appointment through CASB. So they send you a nice little letter saying your appointment is official and all that. So anyway, I would highly recommend that you continue to work with the LRC.
Thank you so much, Pam. Thank you for doing that.
Uh-oh, can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, can you just spend a minute and just expand on the commitment level? Not only because I think it's appropriate that people understand how much time you commit personally, but for someone to step into that position, what does that entail?
Okay, a lot of it from now until the first of the year won't be a lot. It'll just be, you'll have a get together, meet and stuff. But then when the legislative session starts in January, you meet 2 times a month. It's usually on a Friday and it usually starts at 1:30 and it's a 2-hour meeting. And what they do is they go over any legislation that is introduced. So at the beginning, you only have a couple and your meeting might be an hour and a half. When you get further into the session, especially last year, we had a tremendous amount of new freshmen senators and representatives. And wow, there was just piled on the laws that they were trying to get passed. So anyway, so the LRC goes through those and that representative and then in fact notifies the board that this is what they're talking about. Do you support it or no? You get back to CASB and so CASB will get back to whoever's presenting the laws and they'll ask questions if we have questions, or they'll say we don't support or we do. And to have a representative go with his bill to the floor with the support of CASB, I guess has great clout. But I think the most important part of it is when there is something that you really, really want, they will encourage you to text that whoever submitted the bill and tell them what you think about it, yes or no, and why. They really listen to you because you are elected public servants and they really respect that. And it goes a long ways to either passing or rejecting that law or the changing of the law. So it's twice a month, January through May. And then we get together in August to go over the final of that when they submit proposals to LRC for the new election year. Then they get all those together and you go over the meeting that we had this last August was 3 hours and I left finally the last 2. So I don't have the last 2, but I'll update you on those when I look at the Zoom. But all the meetings are Zoom. You vote on Zoom. So there's no travel involved with it, there's no expense with it, but it is a time commitment. Twice a month.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right, any other questions? No? Okay, let's go on to Mr. Figueroa on CASB.
Okay, so I just have really a short few things and Pam, you hit on a lot of those things already, so. Which,
We do overlap a lot.
yeah, Pam and I met about this assembly, about this LRC meeting, and she reviewed a lot of what she just said as it relates to the types of things that you have to commit to if you are a representative for the board. And so I am considering, because the LRC and the CASB are pretty aligned. My even gotten more busy over time. And so I'm trying to figure out whether I can commit to the time to be a good enough representative for this board. So So I'll make a decision on that soon and let
It
the board
is
know.
a lot of reading, because you get all the new legislation that comes down, and you have to read through that, and then you have discussions and during your meetings about it. So you can ask questions and stuff, so you need to be knowledgeable, and it does take some time to read
Yeah.
through all that. You put a couple hours in reading.
So, so that being said, I'm just gonna hit on a few things really quick. Pam mentioned that the virtual voting for delegate assemblies is now in place. There's a process in place. I sent it to all the board members, what that process is. And they are having a Zoom meeting here on Wednesday and then again next Monday to review and to talk about the details of what they expect to happen when people go online and when they vote and what you need to do. So they're really just trying to educate everybody about that process. Because that's happening, it also changes the process of individuals that are at the meeting in Colorado Springs, that's on the 6th and 7th. So they want everybody really on the Zoom meetings to make sure they all know how this process is gonna work when we actually vote. So I think CASB is again trying to get everybody up to speed. I expect it's the first time that this is happening. There's gonna be glitches. And so it's not gonna be perfect, but the perfect thing about this is now everybody's voice can be heard if they choose to get online or they choose to go to the meetings, and that's the first in a long time.
Yeah.
So that's great. That being said, I told you earlier, the delegate assembly for the 2023 Fall Assembly meeting is October 6th and 7th. It's in Colorado. I mean, it's in Glenwood Springs. And I will attend that meeting versus being online because it's a lot closer than usual. It's usually in Denver. Okay, and then I also want to bring up that our 83rd annual convention, which is December 7th through the 9th in Colorado Springs, is coming up in December. New board members will be attending that, and we usually have a really strong meeting as a board to talk about the next half of the year. So I think it's really important that we try to get all our board members to that particular meeting.
And
that meeting is
advertise
called-
that as a retreat.
Yeah, that meeting is called the Focal Point. And so they have some great classes too, some great sessions that go on for board members, new board members and board members that have been here. So, so just a heads up on that. And then finally, there are some trainings for board members that CASB is offering for free. Community engagement is one of those. Effective board and board member offerings is another one. Developing and adopting policies. I think Emily, you can present at that meeting because you've been doing it. Board candidate training, students and First Amendments is another board training. Working with your board attorney is another board training. Working with your superintendent is another training, and Board of Education meetings, best practices. Those are all things that are being offered. When we get a new board, we might consider possibly seeing what our needs are and if any of these might meet that those needs as we move forward into the next year. And that's all I have.
Okay, questions for Victor?
And Mr. Figueroa, it looks like things are coming together to have students join the board at the CASB retreat in
Oh,
December.
awesome.
Great. What group are they going to join?
The students.
The student.
They have the students.
Right, there's 3 different areas. There's the arts, there's leadership, and there's one other one.
Music,
What is
Music,
it?
the art, leadership and music.
yeah,
And
they
music.
should do the leadership.
The leadership is the one there.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's awesome. Okay, I just wanted for the board member candidates, one of you, Victor or Emily, tell us what your experience was the first year, getting on the board, and then going to the CASB conference. How valuable was it to you?
Sure. I was lucky that I could make the time. And I think that that has come around for us this election cycle to be very transparent to our potential board members, which weekend that the event is held. The content at the conference I found imperative to my ability to understand my role as a board member for the school district. Although I'm a very involved parent and have been involved with the school from the time that my son has been enrolled in preschool and is now in middle school, my understanding of board service work was not 100% because I was not sitting on this side of the table. I was often attending and observing board meetings. So the cadence of the work, the impact of the time commitment, along with the just the true satisfaction of being able to serve and offer assistance and opinion and just participate in discussions has been extremely rewarding, but it does not come without a commitment of time in service. And that is something I can't stress enough. That CASB first meeting and the training that was provided there and the handbook, I still refer to the handbook even now, 2 years old, and I use it all the time. And so it's really very imperative that any newly elected board member try very hard to not just, get up to speed on what's going on with our district and our work. And, we just talked about looking at budgets and strat plan initiatives and so forth, but really just get up to speed with what it really means to serve as a school board member. And so I would encourage distinctly that everyone attend. And that has been my first couple of years. It's been fun. I enjoy the work immensely. And I'm looking forward to the next 2 years serving as a board member.
Yeah, and I just would add to that, just that we have a retreat as a board usually at these meetings, meaning we'll all get together and really it's about planning. The next, from January till July, what's our goals? What do we need to try to accomplish? We have, out of some of the meetings we went through the last 2 years, linkage meetings came up and we solidified linkage meetings, which we'll need to talk about again around that same time. So that's an example of some of the conversations we have, but we have a lot of different kinds of conversations that really all our board really needs to be involved in, engaged in, and help plan as we move forward. So that's another major reason why you would want to attend this conference.
I'd just like to add, I think another advantage to going to the CASB conference is to unify your board. You'll become a team. You'll get to know one another, your strengths, your weaknesses over time, that helps to start that process. So that's always a good one. Any other comments for Victor or Tim? No, Katie? Emily? Any other comments? All
No.
right. Thank you. I appreciate you, Emily and Victor, for doing that for me. Okay, Mrs. Cahill-Volpe.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get this, my report into the packet. I sent it this morning. It's pretty simple. It follows the same format. It has some district reports. I will say that some of the districts are not represented on here because I was having Zoom issues, so I didn't listen to the whole thing. So I will say that they're starting to incorporate, Royce is starting to incorporate staff reports, major staff member reports into every meeting, which I think is a really good idea. Steve Otter was the first to present, and he is the director of the School Counselor Core Grant. We discussed that, I believe, our last school board meeting, but a lot of that has to do with the ICAP plans and that are beginning in middle school. There is funding through the Perkins Grant for career and technical education. So I have kind of that listed there. Robin Kellogg did a presentation on the IT department. And then Cindy Houston is the registrar of the Southwest Colorado eSchool, which is basically, it is under BOCES. Royce, the executive director, is actually the superintendent or principal of the Colorado eSchool. And so it is, when we move forward, and we are also doing a huge policy review, we will be doing, in addition to that, a whole other set of policies that really relate to the eSchool, which are very similar to the policies that any district would go over. So yeah, it's a lot. And just for your information, I was really, it basically, the curriculum and the eSchool uses Jefferson County's 21st Century Virtual Academy and Colorado Digital Learning Solutions, but they layer that on with that. They layer paras with it. So a student is not left to their own devices. And so there's many reasons why kids go and use the eSchool. And it can be from everything from they have a working home where they don't want to travel far, and so they want to do an online school, and that's accredited through the Colorado Department of Education. Some of them have been kids frustrated with behavioral issues within classrooms and and just wanting to kind of take a beat and come out of the classroom and put their studies online, but also kids that are really at risk and expelled students. So it runs the gamut of the different types. And then there's also AP courses through the Southwest Colorado eSchool. So there's that. And then from the executive director update, Royce basically kind of brought us up, the board up to speed on the application submitted by the Montezuma Cortez School District to the state, which has been received. I believe that was in our board packet as well, was it? I saw it in something. I'll forward it to you if you would like to see it. I believe I have that. And then they will, BOCES is having a third-party audit, fiscal audit. And then, just for your information, the superintendents do get together monthly.
Yeah, monthly.
Monthly. And they did request a report from BOCES on both on a fiscal side and on a service side, how it would impact the remaining districts if in fact the state approved them Montezuma Cortez School District leaving BOCES. So that is, I believe, due on 9/27. And I think that we could probably share that with all of you guys once we got it. I think that'll be really important, and of course for Chrissy and Todd to kind of look at the fiscal impact, but also then for the principals to look at the service impact. So yeah.
Are they concerned that Cortez is going to be able to pull resources away from our existing BOCES?
Yeah, I mean, that is a concern. Yeah.
Because the way I understand what Tom was saying is that we have this all set up. We can take care of all this stuff in-house. It's the commentary.
That's for the state at this point to decide, is to really look at Montezuma County School District and look at BOCES and see what the ramifications would be. And if we do in fact have enough professionals to serve two entities. And so it is, I think that's where the service impact will be, and whether frankly, they could afford it. And so I think, and fiscal impact on us, whether we could afford having them pull out. So that's how that is looked at through the Department of Education on the state side. So please feel free to fill in any of the blanks that I've missed, so.
No, I felt like that was really comprehensive. All the school districts contribute, and they contribute on a per pupil basis. And so there's 8 school districts that are served by 7 BOCES. And Cortez is the largest of the, well, Pagosa is probably, Pagosa or Cortez are the largest of the 8.
That'd be a significant hit, wouldn't it? Seems like.
Yeah, I think we'll know more when BOCES gives us their report as well. So I think the end of this month and the beginning of October, a lot will be revealed.
Any more questions or comments for Katie? Emily, do you have anything to add? And Tim, I think you had your.
Good.
You're good? Okay. Victor? All right, we'll move on to reports from administrators. So superintendent?
So today was a fun day. Today was picture day. So it was great to see all the students getting in their picture duds. And then also retakes would be November 1st. So I would encourage the board to also get their pictures taken, so we could have professional photos on the website as well. Next week, it's a pretty full week for the school district. On the 26th, we have professionals coming in from PBL Works, and they'll be going into classrooms with the administrative team and observing teachers, and we'll be learning from PBL Works the best way to do instructional coaching and in observations. We'll have access to their tools that they've shared with all the other schools and school districts throughout the country on evaluating, going into a classroom and observing. This will be really helpful for us as we sharpen our skills as classroom observers too. So that'll be the first of 3 days they'll be here. The other 2 days will be strictly based on professional development for our teaching and instructional staff. And those are days coming up later on in the semester.
What was that date again? I'm so sorry.
The 26th, I
Okay.
believe that's Tuesday. And then that also works really well with last Thursday, the instructional leadership team got together with Dr. Gabriel from Fort Lewis College for our monthly meeting. And at that time, we talked about how we did last year growing as a PLC so that we could get stronger in supporting teachers. We solidified our observation documents so that we could all be using the same processes to look at the instructional coaching. We set our mission, our vision, our goals as a PLC. It was a great way for all 3 school leaders to get together and really solidify as a team. It was remarkable. We also looked at every student's performance on either NWA or DIBELS, depending on their grade level, as it was for reading or math. And we put those up on a giant poster, so we could kind of get a full system view of how we're doing as a school district. And it's also just really valuable for our building leaders to spend that time in the data. And all that data that was created will now be the starting off point for the data rooms for each level, whether it's preschool, elementary, or secondary. It was a really strong first meeting. It set a really nice foundation. Our building leaders have made a commitment to really be in the classroom and to be really supportive of our teaching staff. That's the thing they want to do most. That's who they are as individuals. They have the support of Adian Ferrars, our instructional leader, our PBL director. who will be in every classroom every month to provide support. So it was a very big day. It was a powerful day for us to do. We meet with Dr. Gabriel from Fort Lewis College on a monthly basis for a full day of training. And the idea is we want to get better so that we could support teachers better. So it's a really good approach. The other thing I'd like to share is we have a PBL parent night coming up. So that's going to be a week from Thursday on the 28th. It's an hour and it'll be where the building leaders and Audion and myself will be able to just talk with parents and say, you know, why are we so invested in being a student-centric learning environment school district? Why is project-based learning so important to us? So we'll be able to have those conversations with parents. All parents are welcome. And it's next Thursday, a week from this Thursday, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. in the cafeteria. We'll have snacks and we'll have childcare available. And it's just a great opportunity for parents to kind of, you know, in a very casual, warm environment, to learn about why this is important. Why is the community and past boards and current board and current teachers and paras all said that project-based learning is important for our students? That's the question that's going to be answered a week from Thursday. The last thing is, I don't want to steal too much thunder from Chrissy's report later, but I'd like to report to the board that, you know, we have another year where we had a very strong audit, and Chrissy will talk more about that. And we also have a very strong ending fund balance. And of course, the school district had a balanced budget and had no deficiencies on the audit. So Chrissy, sorry about stealing so much of that
That's okay.
from you.
No, we're good.
And then the District Accountability Committee is a committee for parents in particular, business people in particular, and staff. And the first meeting for the District Accountability Committee, as I mentioned earlier, is October 3rd from 5:30 to 6:45 in the historic high school. And I invite all parents to come. It's a great way to learn about the school district. Next week on Wednesday, the 27th, the Board of Education will be going to the CASB Region 12 conference in Bayville, where they'll be getting training from the Colorado Association of School Boards. And speaking of training, I'm really in a good position. I'm really fortunate. I'm going to get some training at the superintendent conference later this week in Crested View. And so I really appreciate the opportunity and support of the school board to be able to represent the school district at the superintendent conference this week. There's also a conference with the National Rural Education Association in November that I plan on attending. And Mancos School District will be represented on their podcast pretty soon. So we had an interview and they wanted to learn more about Mancos School District and what we're doing with career connected learning for our high schoolers. And so it was a very good interview. And then finally, we have a strong celebration in our community, and that's one of our teachers has been recognized as one of 7 finalists for the Colorado Teacher of the Year. And I think that just demonstrates the quality of our instructional staff here at Mancos School District. Abidali is a finalist. So that out of the 50,000 teachers in the state of Colorado, she's in the top 7. Really impressive, and it's quite an honor for her and for the school district. And of course, she has a real heart for the work she does. She provides a learning environment that allows students to really advance academically. So I'm really proud of her and proud of the school district. And they'll announce the Teacher of the Year at the end of October. And Madam President, that's my report.
Okay, what was the date on the Ignacio? Was it Ignacio?
It's Bayfield, and it's the 27th,
September?
next week,
Next Wednesday.
next Wednesday.
Yeah. I can't- I had a bit of a conflict, but I was kind of hoping to get an agenda for that meeting before I signed up for it. So they didn't put out an agenda. Dang, damn it.
They didn't put out a detailed agenda. So, you know, they have more of a like skeleton agenda.
Well, that's pretty skeleton.
They do have some, they usually have it well underway. They have usually some breakout sessions, have general speaker. That's about it. And they usually have dinner. But it's usually very well organized, so.
Yeah, I just think, you know, last time we had a conversation, like we would like it to be a little bit less formulaic throughout the state and have it be a little bit more. And Victor was so kind enough to, you know, relay that to us, and it's just a little disappointing because I feel like that it's a missed opportunity to gather everybody to have like legitimate conversations and so.
Historically, it's been a precautionary trip for the CASB to say that they've gone around to all the district, all the areas.
Well, now that you've got a new director, though, Victor, why don't you reach out to them and tell them what our dilemma is? We want to make sure it's worth their time.
Well, I think I mean,
I think
They
know
came
that.
here.
We talked with them about what we want.
yeah,
just like-
That's what
yeah.
Sadie's really saying.
Right.
So we will hope
Maybe it's
There are
just-
usually some things that are worth going for. You know, you just gotta get through the rah-rah session.
Oh. I don't want to belabor that.
Pam, if I can just add a quick comment too, before we move on.
Go ahead.
I just want to add a quick comment to Todd's commentary around Ivy Dolly and her recognition by the Colorado Department of Education. There are over 50,000 teachers in the state of Colorado. For our tiny community to have a teacher recognized out of the, how many staff do we have now, Chrissy, that's teachers? Maybe 85, 90 that are teachers, maybe? We have a tiny little rural school district.
It's more like 45 as actual teachers.
Actual
Staff-wise.
teachers, okay.
Yeah.
We have a tiny little rural school district that is really doing amazing things. And that recognition is not lost on me as it being held or given to not only Ivy Dolly, but the school district in which she teaches in. And she really is kind of the heart of hearts of the type of teacher that invests her whole being into the success of her students. And she serves in the middle school capacity. So I would recommend that any parents that maybe have kids in middle school or coming up to middle school or nervous about middle school, that she would be a great person to have conversation with. She also serves on the board of directors for Mancos United and really does have a heart of children in our community. And she's a mom. And so that's a whole nother level of understanding as well. So I just wanted to kind of shout that out as well.
I agree with you, Emily. Ivy Dolly is just a good representation for Mancos, and we really compliment her on her selection. That's quite a good, Todd, you said over 57.
Yeah, over 50,000 teachers, you know, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So Ivy, I don't know if you're listening or not, but congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay, Tim, do you have anything more for Todd?
I said it, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, Katie? All right, we'll move on to finance. So Ms. Christie.
Well, we're done with the audit, as you guys got the presentation last in the work session, so that was just awesome. I'm so glad to have that closed out. And we're ending the year with really healthy ending balances, which is awesome. Around 3 million in the general fund, 30,000 in the lunch fund or preschool fund. About 30,000 in both the preschool and the lunch funds. So that's really great. And then about 90,000 in activity fund. So we're pretty healthy. We have a really good ending balances, which I was so excited for. So within the documents that I gave to you guys, there's that closing out of fiscal year 22, which those investment reports, quarterly reports, because I was able to generate those. So if you don't have questions on those, Just want to make sure you had those on hand. And then, in regards to the CDs, we kind of discussed that during the work session, but is everybody okay with us moving forward? Redeeming those 2 bigger CDs
Sure.
and reissuing those for the year? Okay. So we'll do that. We'll start that tomorrow.
Yeah, if you have an opportunity to make better interest off of them.
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah, it makes very good sense to do. So I'll process that paperwork tomorrow.
We'll let Treasury bond over when it matures.
Yep, and I'll look at that maturity date and we'll work on that too. We'll get that.
Is
cleaned
that
up.
on that one that was out there by itself?
Yeah, that's through Edwards Jones.
Yeah, Edward Johnson, you can see the maturity date, see if it's worth it to transfer it into there as well.
Yep, I'll do the same thing and then we'll get rid of that and roll that into something else that's gonna help us more. So I'll look at that and then you're gonna see a salary schedule on the action items. I just wanted to tell you why that's there. There's a new column on that professional salary schedule. It's the only salary schedule that's being presented tonight. And we added an elementary interim dean of students column to that salary schedule. Since we have hired an elementary deans through a grant that we have acquired, so we needed to get a salary schedule in place for that position. So that's the only reason why there's just that one professional salary schedule being approved by you tonight is because of that column addition. Okay, so that's why that's on there. And really, that's it, unless you guys have any questions regarding the audit, and everything was really awesome.
No, these positions that we're hiring on these grants, they're aware your contract is a specific time frame contract. So that we're not putting something in the salary schedule that we're gonna have to pony up to after the grants expire, correct?
That's correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've been very explicit too with our conversation because, these grants are for 2, 3, or 4 years, depending on the grant, so.
So we're working through that, because who knows what'll happen when those are over. It's hard to say. We'll either have another grant to fund it, or who
Well, I
knows?
just know that has been a question in the past from our public. When we make these extra positions, how are you gonna fund it in the future? And I just want to be clear to the public that these are specific, they're contractually for those specific times, and we're obligated to add that to our overall budgets.
Well, I think it's important to know to bring that up, because I know we've been, school district in the past has gone through times where we've been accused of being top heavy. That's another administrative position, but knowing it comes from grant money and it's temporary, I think will alleviate some headaches, especially with our teaching staff. We want to make sure that they know they're valued and they are the heart. So,
Yeah, that elementary dean is a 2-year grant, so.
As we get closer, somewhere in June, when we look at the budget again, it'd be nice again to kind of see the list of positions that are on grants, because they've come in different pieces and we've heard all of them. I couldn't picture the list.
Oh, yeah, it's confusing. I'll
Yeah.
break it out.
There's a nice document that represents that now. So that can be shared with the board promptly.
Yeah,
And it has like the dates of the grants.
It does.
it does. And it's helpful because it is hard to keep track for me, and I'm living it. So I understand the confusion you have too, because there's a lot happening with that. So really, that's it. I'm just wrapping up the fiscal year 22 now that we've closed it. And now I can really start focusing on this current budget and getting that going. And we're on track with it, so there's no concerns or anything at this point. There shouldn't be, but it's all going well. So that's it.
all right, Emily, do you have any other comments or questions?
No,
Tim,
Good.
Victor,
Got
Katie?
Good,
All
thank you.
right. Thank you, Chrissy. We appreciate your report. All right, discussion item 1A, superintendent district goals. So I talked to you, you should have an electronic copy, Emily.
Yeah, Emily was looking at it today.
Okay. She has some questions, huh?
Oh, no, just reading. You know, this came a little bit late, so I apologize to the board. It was in development. I did get the support of Ms. Farrar as well as Ms. Shepherd and Ms. Giles, and also providing some of this information. And so everything there in your left-hand column are the district goals. And then on the right-hand column is kind of where we are so far. And really what we're looking at for meeting those goals. And so this is a really helpful process as we look at district goals, because it allows the board to say, well, are we meeting them the way we thought they were to be met? Are we doing what we want to be done? Or are there things that this isn't, you're not on the right path, Todd. So we want to have a discussion with you about getting on the right path so that when we look at the goals at the end of the year, we can say, yes, we met them to the board's expectation, or we didn't meet them because of X, Y, or Z. But it's a really good clarification document. So I feel like it was a really good process. So as we look at the first one, we just have trained instructional coaching staff. And that really speaks to what I spoke about earlier with the work that Dr. Gabriel is doing. And I also had shared an update to the board on that over the weekend, just because I was so pleased on how well that went on Thursday. So I gave the board a narrative on that. And then we have the implement programs that support the student outcomes that align with the strategic plan. I shared some information there with the board. Then we have the two really kind of performance ones that come from our NWA results. We have the academic growth and we have achievement. And those we won't know till the end of the year, but we were very thoughtful and we got feedback from the staff on how best to measure growth and how best to measure achievement. And so we'll know that at the end of the year, but this speaks to how we do it. And then the last one there under instruction and achievement is the 6 days of PBL training sessions. And we can talk to the dates there of the dates we have PBL works coming in and the contract that we've signed for PBL works. So I'll just stop for that first chunk and just sort of take this by chunk, as opposed to going through like all 9 goals, because it might be too confusing. But this is a good opportunity for the board to sort of look at these things now or in the future and get with me and say, I was thinking this meant something other than this, or this looks like we're on the right track or whatever. This is a great communication document to make sure we're achieving the outcomes that we want to achieve. So as we look at those first 4 instruction and achievement district goals, are there any concerns that come to mind that we're not meeting our targets, or we're not speaking about it in the same way, or?
Digital portfolios are still a gray area for me. And how we're going to go about making that happen.
Right, and this year we're starting with 6th grade is also what I recall. That's kind of our launching point.
Okay, isn't there some in the high school that have done them?
I'm not, that's my knowledge, but I think that is a good one for us to revisit, because I remember we got some really good information from Ms. Farrar on it, but I think it'd be good for us to refresh ourselves on that.
So Todd, I think earlier you expressed how important it was to really support teacher staff
Yes,
around the instructional coaching aspect,
yes,
which I totally really agree. You sent a document that was an update on instructional coaching.
yes, from last
In that
Thursday.
document, you communicated that you're looking at each principal to really do a deep dive with 1 or 2 teachers.
Yes,
You know, how do you feel in the sense of, coaching teachers is critical work? Do you see an increase in the number of teachers, because everybody could use coaching? everybody
Oh.
can use that kind of support. At what point do you see that increasing so that everybody could benefit from the whole coaching process?
Yeah, so all the teachers there'll be a lot of observations in every classroom.
Mhm.
What I was speaking to there is that that each building level will also then be focusing on one or two for more intensive coaching.
Right,
But there'll be a lot of observations, there'll be hundreds of observations throughout the year.
right.
And they'll be in the classrooms across the board, and Ms. Farrar will be in every classroom, every month.
And I think that's great, but the real work is the cook is actually sitting with teachers. And
Yes.
having those conversations, those instructional conversations. That's really the work. That's the support teachers then begin to feel.
Yes,
Observations are the beginning of that process.
well, the observations allow for feedback
Right,
also
exactly.
in a very systematic process. And then also in addition to, but separate from the observations is the whole evaluation process. And our elementary and secondary principals have an incredibly full schedule this year of full evaluations through the RANDA process, which follow that process of pre-observation, observation, and post-observation. And then also following the very robust RANDA rubric.
Which is, that's critical, because that's feedback for teachers, and that's a form of coaching, but it's in an evaluative environment. My hope, at least my expectation, I hope, is that we can support all our teachers to some extent with the coaching model. And that's really about having discussions about the instruction and just having meaningful instructional conversation. Not about necessarily evaluation, but more about what they really see really working and looking really good, and what they think would help them to become better instructional leaders or instructional teachers.
Mhm. Yeah, and for the building level team, this is all about increasing support for teachers as opposed to evaluating teachers and being critical of teachers. This is a very positive environment, and it should be a very joyful experience for everybody, and that's kind of the framework that we're approaching with this.
And that's perfect, because that's what it should be.
Yeah.
Exactly what it should be.
To Victor's point, if I understand you correctly,
Yeah.
you'd like to take the deep dive. So we have the PBL coaching for all, the RANDA for all, but and those are, so we have coaching in the PBL piece, but RANDA is more observational, and then the deep dive is for 1 to 2 per building per year, like just really kind of a real coaching model. So, I hear what Victor's saying, and then, what are the hurdles to kind of fulfilling, like, kind of expanding that? Like, I think that's something we constantly are having that push and pull with, is like, what is our capacity? And, I think the building principals would want those deep relationships, but I also read their reports and I'm like, I don't know how much more. So, it is a question of a prioritization. And, I know that, and I don't want to speak to you, for you, Mr. Figueroa, but I think it is like just making, hopefully we're getting some more staff in place, and so that the instructional leadership can become like the number one piece.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and that's exactly what, that's exactly who Chair is, who Seth is, and who Ed is. That's who they are as individuals. That's the thing they want to do the most, is be that instructional coach and provide teachers in a way that's really fulfilling to the teachers and themselves. That's who they are. And this board has made a commitment to making that happen. And this board did that at the elementary level with the support of teachers, selecting a curriculum that is really aligned for student growth. In addition, the principal at the elementary now has a resource in a dean that she's like a track star with her shoes on, supporting kids, so that the principal now can be the instructional leader. And then we heard all last year from the secondary principal how much he wanted that dean position in place, so he could really focus on being an instructional leader. So this board really said, we heard you, and this board responded. And so we are in a position to really support teachers well. And those individuals, Tira and Adion and Seth and Ed, just are really fabulous people that want to support teachers in a way that teachers feel really comfortable and also really advance in their craft. Because we know as professionals, there's room for growth for all of us. As a professional, that's what it means to be a professional, is to recognize that there's room for growth and development.
I just would always say that if for some reason that number one ideal that we have as an instructional leadership is being eroded by too many other responsibilities, bring that to our attention. We may not be able to do something about it, but we need to be able to be honest about it, because I think when we've kind of pivoted to that being the most important thing, we are getting more directly to student success at every turn. And we're peeling back the onion from all of these duties that our leadership has had to do all of these years.
Yeah.
And so having that additional, so when people say it is becoming, and it's addressing your question, when people say it's becoming more top heavy, but in some ways you're having the most qualified people address the most important piece of what we're doing.
Exactly, and that's well said, and I'll reiterate that as well as a board member. I think that we really want teachers to be comfortable. We want them to be supported around their instruction and around how we can better help them be the best teachers that they can be. And one of the best ways to do that is to talk instructional practice with them and to observe the instructional practice and to give them feedback and to have those kind of conversations. So I hope that through the deans that we put in place, through the other types of supports that we put in place, that it frees up our principals to do the critical work of going into classrooms and setting up conversations with teachers at a later point around what that observation was and how we can support them in the classroom.
Yeah, and just, and that's where the other thing that this board did and through its thinking is we've also are providing training for the instructional coaches, because that's, we want to go in there and do it really well. So I think that's terrific. And in October, we'll be hearing from our gifted and talented staff. And I only bring that up because that was one thing that was also for many years the responsibility of the secondary principal, and now it's not. So that's another example of where we said, if we really want to focus on instruction, we have to raise that up as our number one thing. And that's what this board has done through the budget. So moving on to the next one is we have culture and human resources. And it's the use of the strategic plan and MTSS to develop procedures that we use district-wide for our staff. And that's a process that we initiated a year ago through the help of San Juan BOCES and a 5-year grant. And that's one that we're working on still, and this document speaks to the goals of the MTSS grant. Just 2 rows down, and those goals are really to align the RTI process district-wide. These are the goals for this year, to make sure that we have an articulated PD schedule that grades our professional development for the initiatives that we're doing, so that they're effective and they work well together. And then also developing a draft version of our MTSS handbook. And that really speaks to, do we have a codified process of what is best practice? And it allows us to work from a place of having, if you will, a rubric on how well we're doing things. So that MTSS process is one, and there's an MTS team, and we're really, I'm really thankful that San Juan BOCES has supported us with that grant, and we're in year 2 of a 5-year grant to develop these systems. For many years, Mancos School District's been really fortunate to have high quality individuals. But what we didn't have was a systemic process for things. So as those individuals left, there was a lot of starting over from the beginning. Through this MTS process, it's a process of best practices, so that we have these things codified, so that we don't have that risk of taking a big step back if we lose someone. And that's really what the MTS is about. One of the ways that I need board input is, one of the district goals speaks to 3 days of professional development around culture and human resource support. And at this point, we've not identified how we're going to spend those 3 professional development days. And we don't have a plan in place yet for what we're going to do there. And then the final one under this section is, speaks to the superintendent and the board to develop a retention and recruitment plan, so that we have a plan in place for really our biggest fiscal risk. And that's the fiscal risk of losing our high quality staff because we can't afford to keep them. So there's been a lot of great work with community members and staff members with setting up a task force. There's been great communication to the public around that. We're moving towards an environment where at some point we'll probably end up asking, we'll be coming to this board with some recommendations, and those recommendations will say, board, will you support us as we want to do a mass caravan of people and go visit that General Assembly and really tell our story that it's not appropriate. Our salary schedules are not appropriate for our staff. We need more money for our staff. Or a recommendation will be coming to the board and saying, we need to go to the public and talk to them about a sales tax or a property tax or some sort of tax to raise revenue. But those things can only happen once we've done the important work of understanding all that. And I look to this board and future boards and I say that work can't happen without board leadership also. So I do, as we look to future boards, I would love to see some champions come out of our candidates on this issue to really support what we pay our staff, because what we pay our staff is really not appropriate. It's not, and it's also not appropriate from a place of just a business dollars and cents. We're not going to be able to keep the high quality individuals that we have unless we can find a way to bring additional revenue. So under that section, that's the section of culture and human resources. Are there questions that I brought up?
I do have a few. The first one is a comment. I would recommend that board members go to one of the MTSS DIT meetings. Just because that's a lot of acronyms that I told them to do, but, and so it's very confusing. And it's confusing even once to me, it was confusing about what exactly it is, but then it was extremely powerful once I attended a meeting, and it actually made a lot of sense to me of how you just take all of these various different lenses onto a process or a department or something, and you kind of go through all of these is it written, are your procedures written down? Is it, you know, is there equity in these processes? And it's like it's a whole, you know, process. So it's very interesting, and I would recommend that you do it, especially since it's becoming a backbone of how we're developing many of our procedures. The other piece is that when should we expect more from some of these task force? We had a recommendation which we voted on last board meeting, but we haven't seen much from folks, and you know, maybe we need to instigate that. Like, where are next steps on that?
Yeah, we're really coming up on a pivot point there.
Okay,
So we're at a pivot point where it's gonna fall its own way, or it's going to sustain.
okay,
And it's at a delicate point, and the summer really did not do well for that task force. We lost the momentum over the summer
okay.
for
I
sure,
know the
so.
one with Mr. Sled, I think it was on teacher salaries. They did some flyers at Mancos days, and they really tried to keep it up.
Okay.
That was only one of the 4. But yeah, it sounds like there needs to be a reboot, you know, just to get people back on board. I can imagine to take a group of teachers who would talk on the House floor would be monumental. I think it would really help. And the board, send a couple of board members as well who are elected just like these representatives, and it would be huge for them to hear, you know, what they have to pay per house in Mancos as opposed to what the salary is that they get. You know, and the cost of living, you know, anyway, they need to hear from those people, not just the county or the city or the school. And they need to hear from the individuals.
Yeah, and this is exactly why I wanted to have like a kind of a more in-depth, relevant meeting at the regionals, is because to me, this could be a conversation that we could have with the other districts and create movement and create a group of people who could then represent our region. So I'm not quite sure, you know, maybe through the BOCES, if that's appropriate or something, I don't know, but I just feel like we have so many schools who are in the same boat, not just in our Southwest region, but throughout Colorado. And the fact that we haven't found a way to collect our voices to move forward. So I don't know what the answer is, but maybe.
Yeah, and there is slow but steady, and there is work that's been so solid that it is sustaining.
Okay,
So there's work continuing as it relates to affordable housing. It looks like we're moving forward with our process of understanding what that looks like and what that might look like at the bus barn. There was good, flyers were made and distributed in Mancos days, but and there's also good communication. The town of Mancos has been very supportive. That relationship is really getting stronger, and that could be really helpful to this process, because if we don't work through the town, then we have to work through the county. And our other 2 school districts in the county, they're focused on other things right now. And, Dolores is working on the best grant, and they're looking on facilities. And as we talked about earlier, Montezuma Cortez, they're looking at ESS and that programming about whether or not they want to belong to the San Juan BOCES. So there's challenges there, but I do ask that it'll take some board leadership also as we move forward with this, because this is the type of movement that just can't be owned by district employees.
Right.
It's got to be a full community movement.
Thank you.
So as I move on, there's management and board relations is the next bunch, and it talks about the strategic plan and making sure that we receive strategic plan objective reports. It talks about linkage, board linkage, and how that's developing. And then the third goal was develop a feedback system. So the strategic plan, we're really entering our third year of having strategic plan and strategic plan reports. And I think we're building some really strong processes there. And I think we're aligning, we're understanding what it means to have that governance process in place. And so I feel really good about how we're doing that. For that second item about communication, if the board is looking for more than just the strategic plans on the website, I ask the board think about that and then get back with me over time on how they want those strategic plan reports communicated to the public. Because right now, I'm just considering putting them on the website as meeting that goal. So if that's not what the board has in mind, be thinking about it and let me know, and we'll come up with something. The other thing that the board really asked for was a system, as we develop these district goals and got feedback from staff. One thing that was raised by the board and staff is really, develop a system of feedback from school members, staff, students, parents, and community members that could provide feedback on how well the school district's doing, whether it's good or challenges or whatever. And I need direction from the Board of Education as to what that looks like. There's a variety of ways that could happen. And I just don't know if it's, so be thinking about that too. And let's come up with a good concrete way where we can measure that goal, and that a way that the administrative team can meet that goal of the district goals. Okay. And then the last one under that management piece was applying the MTSS process to one department. And that department that we're going to be applying it to is the communications department. And I'll tell you a little bit about the communications department in this document. And then I'll also share with you a little bit about what it means to have a systemic process of evaluation, where we're looking at team-driven shared leadership, database problem solving, comprehensive screening and assessment, layered continuum of support, and family and school community partnerships. So I speak to that, and I also let you know about how far we're going to get with that department this year. So also give me feedback if we're getting far enough for school board members' expectations, because that's part of what we have to do, is just maintain this open line of communication so that we can say, yeah, we got to this point and that's acceptable for this year, or we didn't quite get where this isn't what I was thinking, or whatever. Any questions on that section?
Emily, do you have anything to say in communication here?
That's not bad.
I always have something to add about communication. All I will say, just in the respect of time, is that I will continue to work with Todd and the board directly, since I will be part of this board for the next 2 years. Communication is never solved, fixed, repaired, or bettered overnight. It takes a lot of time, and communication goes hand in hand with culture. And I have had conversation with Mr. Cordray, and will continue to do so, because I think where we really have to land is in the realities of what the district is capable of. Good communication not only takes effort and expertise, it also takes funds, because you have to have systems in place and people in place. And we struggle with the ability to do that at times. I will say that I have seen improvement. I do believe that we are headed towards the right kind of, next mark, if you will, for improvement. And we will continue and need to continue to strive to improve. It would be an area that I would likely predict won't move off of our goals, maybe ever, because the need for improvement is always present. But I do think we have made some improvements. So I don't have a whole lot to offer as far as, we need to be doing X, Y, Z, but I will say that I do see that we are doing, and that is important, is that we're paying attention to it. It's on this sheet. We do talk about it often. And I think you have leadership, not only from the board perspective, but more importantly, the school leadership that are effective communicators and are striving to get better. So that's my observation. That's all I have to say today.
Okay. Anybody else?
So I would just say, Todd brought up a couple of different areas that he wants some feedback from the board.
Exactly. I was gonna put
So
that
he
to
talked
maybe
about,
at a
yeah,
time
he talked
frame.
about the culture and climate.
Mhm.
He talked about the development, the
board.
feedback development for our
How to get feedback.
Staff.
from our staff around our strategic plan and then communication. So I think it's important to give you at least some information from a whole board perspective versus individually. Although everybody can do it individually, but so I really think that this needs to come on to our work session so that we have time to talk about this and at least give some feedback so Todd knows what he's trying to do in these areas, and come January, we all have a better idea what that is. So that he can do the best that he can to try to accomplish those things. So all I'm suggesting is that, January is going to come pretty fast. And so if we can put this on the next, give us, an hour to talk about these three areas at the next work session, and see as a board, if we can come up with some clearer expectations. And Todd, all I would ask is if you have some ideas on some of these areas, to please bring those or send them to us prior, possibly to the next work session. And that way we can take a look at that and say that'll work, or, add on to that.
I'm not sure how much more we can put in on our next work session.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, we
I
do we
agree.
have a
So
presentation?
it may be
Maybe
November.
November.
Well, one idea is maybe to kind of streamline the process, if this seems appropriate, is maybe put a third column on this document. Have
Yes.
you some
Yes.
comments?
There you go.
And
There you
then maybe we can start a running document together of our own comments, and then consult, and then have us all review what people's comments are, and then we can bring it to a work session and maybe knock it out in 15-20 minutes.
Yeah,
That's
sounds good.
that's what I
good to
think.
me. I just want us to be able to
No, I
to all
agree.
sit together for a minute and say, yeah, we all agree that this is it, versus
I
it's hard to do that on an email.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, but I think I do like the running document where we all
Yeah,
start
I
kind of
agree. Yeah.
spitballing, and then we
I
come
agree.
together and have that conversation in a public forum.
And I was gonna say, when you're developing management and board relations, when you're developing system for feedback, it might be even include the principals with their staff on how they feel best. There any helps that they can give us on how they can get their feedback to us and then us to them. So. I like that idea, Louis. That's awesome. Yeah, our next board meeting. Oh, I thought we did. We have that the MTSS? No, the gifted and talented and stuff from secondary coming in with the presentation, right?
Yeah, in October, we do have gifted and talented coming from the, not just secondary, but elementary and secondary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to your point, Katie, we did have a third, I did start this document with a third column.
Oh, yeah?
Just for that reason, yeah. And then when I went to print it today, I took it off so it'd print better.
Third columnist.
Okay, and then the last one is community relations. And that's always been an area we've been stronger at. So I did speak to what we're doing there with community relations. And as I mentioned, just as I touch base, there's all kinds of great information there. So I feel like we're really likely to meet that mark. But if there's more you want to see there, let me know. And one of the things is that, speaking of a strong partner with the town, there's a process being developed with our Stuco that they're gonna have one of our students as a non-voting town trustee.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's really cool.
And Todd, we at one time had mentioned, and I just want to make sure that this is not lost. It can be a comment that I would leave later, but at one time we had discussed at some point engaging a student representative with the board. And also I would mention, or maybe even ask the question here, I believe there's some conversation around a student attending the CASB conference. So those two things probably should be added to your narrative here, so that we can respond to that and not lose sight of that ask, because although it may take time to accomplish, I do think that both of those items are poignant.
Thank you. Okay, so that's what I had for the discussion item of district goals.
Yeah, we have discussed having, well, we used to, when my kids were in school, we had a non-voting member, student that was set with the board. And I don't know whether they came from Stuco or where, I don't remember, but that partnership would be really awesome, I think, to get the students back involved with the board, because they don't oftentimes know even who we are, much less why we're here. All right, any other questions of this document? Tim, have anything?
No.
Victor?
No. I'm
Okay.
making notes.
Okay, Emily, you're good? I just have a question too with the linkage. I mean, like we had with the library, the students, I went to nonprofits. Emily, where'd you go with your linkage? Was yours town? Yours
Mine was the town. Mine was town, yes.
And then Tim, you went to the,
Chamber of Commerce canceled on me.
oh, okay. All right, I was just wondering, that it seems like next steps now with those groups to keep them involved. And I don't know, there may be other entities you need to work with as well, but it seems like now there needs to be more added on to that, because we've made the relationships now. Now what are we gonna do with those relationships? If that's the
Well,
best-
there's also an element, Pam, of a turnover of members of the board. And so, you know, the thought process is also, how do you have that conversation around who steps into which areas of development and then furthers those conversations? And this is just my personal opinion, but with Todd being, or the superintendent being the constant, right? The constant thread between the two groups, or the centermediary, I think with his help, the board can have a conversation around, okay, going forward into next year, how do we continue to have the right linkage, whether that be working together through a meeting or through a specified meeting, or even an activity like, you know, Todd just alluded to the fact that we're working much closer with the town now than we ever have been. So many items are happening even without sitting down for a formalized meeting. So it's almost as though the groups are at various levels, right? Like Chamber of Commerce hasn't happened. So I think there's a cadence to discuss as to who takes on what and at which to do, because they're all going to evolve differently now as we move forward. And we just can't lose sight of continuing to press upon the need to link those groups. And maybe it even becomes well, this group's doing great. Now let's fold in this group. Now let's fold in that group. So I think it's a big conversation. And I think Todd will need to be a big part of leading that conversation. Apologies to you, Todd, if I just gave you more work.
I was thinking that we have a retreat in December, and that should be topics to really, because that's what exactly we did last year. We developed that, we talked about the idea that we wanted linkage, we wanted to connect with our community. We achieved that last year after we met in the retreat and really had some meaningful discussion about what that should look like. And that's, to your point, Emily, is what you're really talking about, is to get everybody up to speed on what we did this year and then say, what are the next steps? And that's where Todd can take more of the leadership too around that as it relates to options that we might have.
Well, I might propose that we have a page in our board handbook called the Mancos School Board Linkage Plan, and that really is the only place it lives, is that possibly there becomes a quarterly report from everybody on, just like CASB or BOCES or something like that, each board member owns a piece of linkage, right? And that is decided maybe at the beginning of the year, and then that becomes a rolling report that somebody reports on that. But that it doesn't end, we discussed the 5-month plan that we all did. But that rolls all the time. So that maybe you're tasked to, go see, meet up with your linkage group, 3 times a year or something like that, and continue that. And then at that point you could say, yeah, it's, not working, or the conversation's dead, or, we've gotten as far as we could go, or it's amazing, we need more, or whatever. And so that's, maybe.
I also.
And then just extrapolate it.
I also like the idea, Katie, around possibly changing it up a bit. I mean, board membership does roll and change, but that doesn't mean you can't take the linkage on an annual basis. And I think Victor, you took on student linkage last year, and it probably makes sense that a different board member take on student. I took on town. Maybe it makes sense a different board member go to the town so that they get exposed to various board members depending on needs and situation. I will also tell you that it is being looked at as far as kind of a planning or rolling forward. And I think that because there's enough linkage there, even beyond quarterly, it becomes possibly bi-monthly with the number of groups and the number of board members. It may be more than 4 reports. It may be when those meetings happen, basically, and hit that planning calendar that we're putting together.
You can see also combining some of those groups to make it stronger too, and to have those group come together, and then, should be fun, So your retreat, put that on your agenda for your retreat in December. Okay. Any other questions about this document from Todd on the superintendent district goals? Thanks.
And it's been shared to you all now. I've added that 3rd column again.
Oh,
So we're set.
Good. Okay, so we can put in our comments in the 3rd column and then send it back to Todd. Okay, and he can get them all together. All right. Sorry, I gotta get my agenda back up. Okay, so if there's no more comments or questions about superintendent district goals, let's move on to policy review. We started this in the work session. We realized that we maybe need more time, and so we left it at, do you want to finish it tonight, or would you rather have a special meeting to finish it?
Yeah.
It's already almost 8 o'clock.
Yeah. I say we move it to a special.
No, we're gonna do our first reading of it tonight because we've already
Right.
presented with it.
We are, so we just need to have our discussion piece. So are there any suggestions on dates? Did you guys look at your calendars?
I would propose that we either pick a date or even propose 2 or 3 dates, each of us. I could do a doodle poll and then just say who could be available on these dates, and then we can hold a 30-minute Zoom meeting. I think we can do this by Zoom and not in person, if that would be
Okay.
easier. Just a suggestion.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
think that'd be great. Victor, Tim, would that?
That's fine.
Yeah, it's
All right, so let's send in our dates that we're available. If you
I'll
guys
ask.
do that ASAP, we'll send them to Emily. Okay, and then she'll send us back with 1 or 2 dates that everyone can do.
Sure.
All right, then we go on to strategic plan. We have 3A objective. Excuse me. The first one is that Mancos School District uses a standard-based assessment system with formative and summative assessments aligned to district priority standards. And then B is Mancos School District teaching staff use a portrait of graduate student-centered modeling classrooms. We had discussed this with Adion. There's more information or discussion you need to have on that.
I did also just re-forward those, so that, I did just re-forward those as well, 3 and 3B, so yeah, so can look at them online as well.
Okay.
The only comment I would like to just state is that the 3A monitoring report, objective 3A, Audion had it at standard. And I really felt after we discussed this, that the one next step that she has written down would be the place priority standards in a central digital location for easy access. I don't think we have it housed and that everybody knows what the standards are. So until that happens, I feel that we would be approaching standard and not at standard. I just feel like it's such a simple, it's a simple statement, but a huge task.
Well, it keeps a focus on that.
Yeah, and everybody needs to know. And then also, you know, her other next step was really, I think that would be, that would be the getting us to above standard, is that everybody is very clear at what it means to be be standards based. So that's my only comment. The other objective 3B, I felt comfortable at being at standard.
Okay. Emily, you have comments?
I would echo Katie's sentiments around 3A as well. I did feel strongly as though approaching was likely the best landing spot. I really caution us to really think about, you know, standards and then exceeding standards. There are some moments where we are looking at exceeding standards, and that, you know, those just don't always, we better be really exceptional to be exceeding. And so I don't think that at standard is a bad thing. I think it's just a statement of fact and gives us more room for improvement.
And I had that same thought on 3A, just what the preschool was doing really well. The elementary school has their standards-based report card, but the secondary doesn't use that. There's still some communication that they're working on with that. I think that needs to continue. And we can do more communication with in secondary with the reporting. So that was my comment on that. And then 3B was, okay. Victor?
Yeah, I think that we talked about this at a work session. And that was that we have the elementary and we have preschool that have a structure in place around standard objective 3A. But the middle school doesn't seem to have that really strongly in place yet. And so I can't see it even being that standard there because it's just not in place yet. Now, I think it will get in place, but I think until it does, it's hard to say that that's a standard that we're meeting at that level. So I think that's more of approaching standard.
No, I hear
from my
you.
perspective.
Said backing up her statement, it's not a bad thing, it just means that we're working.
It's not a bad thing, no,
And I like that
it's just identifying.
Yeah,
that's an area
and
to
keep
look
the
at.
focus on that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Well, there's been stuff identified, like I said, some identified that does not meet the standard at this
Okay.
point, so.
Okay, so 3A, you would put at standard, 3B.
Yeah, the approaching standard.
Approaching. There's approaching anyway. Okay. All right, do I have, let's see. Do I have a motion to accept 3A and 3B?
No, at the next meeting is
Oh,
when
that's
they'll
the
be
next one
voted
we'll
on.
do?
Yeah,
Sorry,
no, mine's, yeah.
that's right, because we just talked to her on Monday night.
Mhm.
All right. So now consent motions for action items.
I'd move that we do all A through J as consent.
I second that.
Okay, so I've got a motion for policy A through J, correct?
Correct.
All right, and there's a second. Any discussion? All right, can Heather call the question, please?
Katie Volpe,
Aye.
Sam Carpenter,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. All right, do we have? Okay, that, I think, okay, well, we have no public participation. So, future agenda items. I have the work session. Well, we already took care of that because with Todd's document, we can get them information. So any other items for work sessions or on the agenda for the next meeting that you need?
I emailed everybody a draft of the
Okay.
board self-evaluation. Just an overall, what I look at as definitions of okay, doing better than okay and doing excellence.
Okay,
And then I'll
So under discussion
flesh
item?
that out, but
okay.
I'd just like people to look and see if this is going in the right direction.
And is this for a work session or is this for?
It could be either. That self-evaluation,
That could be a
our work sessions get pretty heavy. We'll try to, but if not, we'll put it in the regular meeting. Okay, it's more of a work session
and
type.
comments can be made for that, can be made via email,
Yeah.
because this is still very rough.
Okay. So you're asking for comments,
Yeah.
unless you're gonna send us, we'll send,
Yeah,
okay. And then you can do a
I
report.
have some stuff, I was gonna flesh it out more, just my week's already shot until Monday.
You want
Okay,
feedback
so
on the
you-
document you sent?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, so you can give a report on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as a matter of like some chronology here,
Mhm.
so we have the document in front of us, we're gonna make comments via email. You're going to report on it at the next board meeting.
Sure.
Are we gonna make a decision on whether
Just
we're moving
discussion.
forward and then just put a date on? Because we haven't evaluated ourselves, and I think I think it needs to be a simple document. I don't think,
Right.
future boards can, but I think we need to have something in place.
Right.
So I'd like to get something approved by the next board meeting is my feeling.
So you want a discussion and an action item?
I do.
Okay.
If that's okay with everybody. Because I think we should evaluate ourselves before the new board, like, and just say,
That's
hey,
true.
this is where we're for improvement. So that's kind of how I feel. I just have one thing I wanted to make a mention of. I do recall that as a candidate, I went to the CASB regional meeting.
Can I do what?
Regional meeting. And so I would just, if we can make that information known to the candidates, there were other candidates at the CASB
Right.
regional meeting.
Yeah.
And I thought, now, the school would certainly pay that fee, and I'm sure it's later, and I don't think it's probably, like the early bird, it doesn't shave that much off of
Yeah,
it.
no, because
But
it's just.
Maybe if we could get people that in front of folks, like ASAP, see if we can get some folks that are interested based on their schedule, and if they could go, it actually might be a good front load for folks to kind of meet other candidates too, so.
It used to be specifically, they had a section 4 candidates.
Yeah, and I hadn't heard anything, haven't seen anything or heard anything.
Either, again, Victor, I would reach out to Casby and ask them for an agenda
Yeah.
for that.
Well, I didn't know Todd asked one, it's just like 5 bullet points, there's, I mean. We're
I'm
beating
doing
the
my
dead
best.
horse.
Yeah, I do ask.
I
mean,
know,
honestly,
I'm
I just
kidding.
don't know that I got an answer back.
Yeah,
Ask Leslie Bogart. Ask her.
I'll be in the world meeting tomorrow. so
Okay.
I'll talk with
Yeah,
her.
ask her.
Yeah. And then Pam, just for the sake of not forgetting, we just talked about giving Todd feedback and having a structure around doing a spreadsheet before
On
we
the
meet.
district goals.
So yeah, the district goals just somewhere in there, so we have time to look at a document that we can finalize.
So you want that under discussion item? Well, yeah, because we don't vote on mid-year goals.
no,
We're just updating them.
Yeah,
So
we
maybe
can-
just an update on discussion.
correct.
All right.
Sure, my lady gets it. Everything's all right.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, then we stand adjourned.